Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Let's bring KC Joyner into the conversation as we get ready for the NFL playoffs. You can hear them all right here, starting tomorrow at 4 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. KC, welcome. How are you?
Hey, good. Just thinking about Chris Mortensen right now.
Yes, sad news if you didn't hear that. Chris Mortensen going to take some time off. Throat cancer. Is that the correct? Throat cancer?
That's what I read, yeah. Got to say, share a quick Chris Mortensen story if you don't mind. I was at the ESPN Fantasy Football function here last year, and I brought my kids over there, and he played catch up my youngest son. And it just made my youngest son feel he was like, hey, go deep and everything. And really, just getting into playing catch and things. And you'd never know this guy was, he didn't big dog things at all. He was just a down to earth, really nice guy who made my son's day. Just, fantastic guy. So I'm really thinking about hoping Chris gets better.
Yeah, and I remember every time we've ever had him on the air, but remembering the day that Deshaun Jackson got cut. Him jumping right on that day, really cool. I literally, right before you came on, I had just saw a tweet about that from ESPN. So some sad news there, and hopefully everything will end up okay for Chris. And Casey, we got the football games this weekend, some interesting things. First off, we'll start with Doug Pederson being the new head coach in Philadelphia. He doesn't do a lot of the play calling down there. There might have been more qualified guys, but in the end, do you look at this hire and scratch your head, or do you think that this is a safe, very Andy Reid feeling hire for the Eagles?
Yeah, I think it's safe, but it might be safe in a good way. They know what they're getting, so they're familiar with what his skill set is and where he'll fit into the organization. So from that perspective, if you know what the guy's capable of, it's almost like getting the benefits of hiring somebody internally, but not having a downside where if you hire somebody internally, sometimes that can cause some internal rifts and things. It's like you kind of get the best of both worlds. So it might not be a thrilling hire, but I'm okay with it.
All right. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. Let's give him a shot, not an absolute failure, not the sexy pick. The Eagles went with the sexy pick with Kelly. That didn't work out. When they didn't go with the sexy pick with Reid, some people would think, well, he never won a Super Bowl, but I think that worked out pretty well for him. And, Andy, let's start with him. His Chiefs are going for 11 straight as they go to Foxborough. What do you think about that matchup with Kansas City heading to New England?
If you look at Kansas City since Week 6, look at numbers on a points per drive allowed and a points per drive scored, which is one way to measure offensive defensive productivity. If you look at that, they're at or near the top of the league in both of those categories. Now they're facing the New England team that's been having some trouble offensively. They got some injuries on defense, and now Gronkowski's hurt, and you've got a couple other people questionable. In fact, I think it was 12 people on the Patriots are listed as questionable, and then some of them are truly questionable. The Patriots usually pretty kind of borderline on putting people questionable. There are a few who are actually truly questionable. I think I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's ripe for an upset for Kansas City.
Interesting there. So we'll see if Doug Pederson continues on, or will he become property of the Philadelphia Eagles after Saturday. Let's go to Green Bay and Arizona. The two teams just met recently. I think Arizona might be the most complete team. The Vegas odds for them, they believe that they are the best team. Is this a mismatch?
No, I wouldn't call it a mismatch because Arizona's been kind of up and down of late. I think losing Tyrann Mathieu hurt their defense in a significant way. He would play free safety sometimes. We did a lot of covering in the slot and things, and they're still a very good defense, but they had a little trouble covering the tight end. And Carson Palmer could be a risk taker on offense, where he does a really good job on downfield throws, but he's got a long history of he'll make some risky passes. So if they play up to their talent level, yeah, it could be a mismatch, but this team is just inconsistent enough to where you can't say it's a shoo-in.
Yeah, and I think it's a fun game there with Green Bay and Arizona with the quarterbacks there. There's a lot of good quarterback matchups, but this one here, Wilson and Newton, break this one down for us. Which of these two quarterbacks is playing better right now?
Yeah, I beg my pardon there. I have a little bit of a cold and battling. I wrote an article for ESPN's Insider section this week looking at that matchup, and when you look at Wilson's numbers over the past 7 weeks since Week 11, he outplays Newton in nearly every facet. Vertical passing, short passing, deep passing, accuracy of throws. How many times he's overthrown, underthrown a receiver? Bad decision rate. There was like a litany of metrics that this article reviewed that said Newton's playing very well in all these categories, but Wilson is playing a lot better. And I mentioned that bad decision rate. It's a metric I have that measures how often a quarterback, the mental error that leads to a turnover opportunity. up and down with that in his career over the past few weeks. He's taking a lot of chances. I think he's trying to make big plays because he has to, and Wilson's making a ridiculously low number of bad decisions. So if this game turns on just one trope, or Newton looks like he's more apt to do that, and that's why I think Wilson's going to outplay him. I think Seattle wins that one.
All right, KC Joyner with us here. That's interesting. Cam Newton and that team, just one loss this year, playing at home, Kansas City crossing the country. That one should be a lot of fun, though, with those two quarterbacks. Let's look at Pittsburgh and Denver. Devastating injuries for Pittsburgh. Did they have enough in the tank to go to Denver?
I would think not, except which Peyton Manning's going to show up. When he was last game, he's looked like he's back to his usual self, but he's going to be his usual for 4 quarters. Is it just he has enough in the tank for a quarter or a half? The Steelers also, they're missing Antonio Brown, they're missing D'Angelo. They got good production on the running game without D'Angelo, and they still have Martavis Bryant, and they still have Marcus Wheaton. They still have guys who can stretch the field. So I don't think Pittsburgh's going to want to try and get this into a shootout game, just because I don't think I think Ben's got limitations with his arm, so they're going to be in the same boat Denver is. But this could be one of those 17-14 games to where if Peyton makes some mistakes, and he has been forcing a lot of passes into coverage over the course of the season, if he makes a mistake like that, Pittsburgh could pull off the upset. Denver probably wins, but Pittsburgh could pull it off.
Should be a fun weekend. Of course, you can hear all the games right here on 97.3 ESPN, your home for Super Bowl 50. KC Joyner, ESPN.com. Of course, we'll wrap up all the games with KC on Monday, and we will preview the championship round next Thursday right here on the Sports Bash 97.3. Enjoy the games. Have a great weekend, KC. Get better.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.